human distance.
Okay. This is gonna take more than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry to say, I think we should have put 15 down.
Being it's just a discussion, I would be unheard to start a discussion.
Doesn't matter.
I think being's,
Yeah, we got Mark there.
we've got a 10:05 item on pipeline ordinance discussion. It's gonna take longer than the 5-minute allotted time, so I think that being it's just a discussion item only, no action to be taken, we could start the discussion now. Martha, have you had time to, is it, I'm guessing you're here for that portion of this.
I'm here for many things.
Okay. All right. Okay,
Another jack of all trades.
this was brought to us, I think a lot of counties are starting to put this ordinance into play. It just solidifies our level of participation on what we expect pipeline companies to perform in the event that they do go through with the construction of this pipeline. And did you have a chance to read through it, or it's pretty cookie cutter the way it looked to me? I mean, it might be-
I did, the two proposals that were sent address slightly different things, but it goes back to that bigger question that the board is looking at with the twin tower ordinance, looking at a proposed solar energy ordinance, pipelines, things of that nature. And it goes to the question of, do you want a standalone ordinance, or do you want this part of the zoning code? Because one of the model ordinances is just, basically addressing everything. And the other one is more specific, and it talks about a compliance certificate regarding emergency management. So you could potentially put both together, but again, it goes to that bigger picture issue of, do you want standalone tower ordinances, solar ordinances, pipeline ordinances, or do you want those part and parcel of the zoning?
Can I ask you a question? Because we've been working on this for how long now? But when we were talking about like with the turbines and we're going zoning, and this is something that just keeps popping back up in my mind. Now, I don't, and like the zoning board, I'm sure that their intentions are always going to be, above board and everything's going to be good. They're really not answerable to the voters like what we are.
No, they're not. What they are answerable to is that there's, because how they're structured, they're reviewing requests for variances and, unhappy complaints, things of that nature. What can happen with their decisions is that they can be appealed to the district court.
Yeah.
So by having a standalone ordinance, it puts the ball back in the court of the supervisors for you guys to decide, are we gonna make the decision? What happens with that decision? Is there an appeal? From there, whereas the Board of Adjustment, there's already a set process put in
Okay.
place.
Thank you. That answers my question.
So that is basically page 8, that section C, is that what you're talking about for supervisors, the resolution, petition, and effective landowner, that's one of the meetings that we had attended. They talked about the Board of Supervisors, and I don't even know exactly how it worked, but they mentioned that if 100% of the landowners hadn't signed on, that there was a way that the county could not allow them to cross the road. Have you heard any more about that particular? I think Shelby County, remember that time, how that went?
So I know there was a discussion of that and some of the paperwork that you had dropped off of the whole, what can we do? What, how are they able to do that? Right now, the particular Summit Carbon, where they're at in the process, it's more a question of, do we want to be proactive or do we want to be reactive? Since they haven't filed their final, this is who landowners who are going through, this is our specific path, because they're just not there yet. We don't know what kind of roads they're going to cross, if people are going to be on board with this, all of that nature.
But would we have to have that in place? What I worry about is that you know, they're planning to cross one of our roadways. And I don't know the legality on it. That's kind of why I dropped that off. If that's an avenue that we could have in place, that they know that unless they have 100% sign on with these landowners, that the county may not allow them to cross our roadways. It's kind of how I interpreted that in a layman's terms.
If they don't have 100% sign on with the landowners, then it goes back to how badly does the pipeline want to get built, and then questions of eminent domain, which are always very, very sticky politically, as well as messy on the lawsuit side of things. So even before we would get to an issue of can we block them from crossing a county road, we would need to address the, okay, there's a landowner who won't sell.
There's a lot of them that will sell. So I think that Crawford County needs to kind of get that lined up, how we feel about that. I feel eminent domain is not an option in Crawford County, but what do we do to prevent that? Because it seems like they're steamrolling right through and saying, this is where it's gonna go, and we don't care what anybody says, and we will use eminent domain if we have to.
So eminent domain is not a right of the company, even if they say we want to use eminent domain, but they are not absolutely guarantee that. That is still a decision for the court. So they might win part of it, they might win all of it, but all of that would have to be resolved before we even get to can they cross a county road.
Let me ask you a question while you're on the county road thing though. I mean, really, every bit of ground underneath that road is the landowner A or B up to the 50, but we have the right of way. So I mean, we'd have to sign off on a right of way, but they'd still.
We have an easement to
The
maintain
easement.
a road within that right of way. Yes.
So I mean, while we do have authority to grant certain public utilities,
No, that's what Paul keeps strictly saying, that any utility should have an easement with said landowner for anything within that right of way. Most utilities do not. They file a permit with us and they put fiber optic, telephone, water, what have you in there. But
We did not.
really, they.
But most
they
of
don't
it's
have
something
permission
everybody's
from the
using.
landowner to do it.
But
So
can we deny that permission to go into our easement? I
We
guess?
we can, but then
That's more. of
that's
a
the line we
reactive
have as a
proactive.
supervisor.
Right, so that's why I wanted to, sorry, but that's how.
To decide which utility is worthy, which utility ain't.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of a stickler. I mean,
Should we have that in place prior or pro rather than reactive, or I think that,
The landowner fight is going to be the bigger fight.
Yeah.
Whether you cross our county road and get an easement, that's kind of small potatoes
Yeah.
versus the bigger fight of the landowner.
I guess, yeah, if you have 100% sign on, it's a non-issue. If you
Right.
have the landowner that didn't sign on, and they don't want to go through the whole eminent domain thing, and the pipeline knows they can't get across the road, they might need to find a whole different path.
I would,
Okay, so part of the decision about the path, that's through the Iowa Utilities Board.
Right.
And they have quite a lot of documentation on the summit part of the pipeline, since I've had to troll through it, and
It's
they
a
get
lot.
more and more and more, but what we ultimately need is for Summit Carbon to file their Exhibit H to their petition. And that Exhibit H is that specific, we're going through this quarter section of this township, that's specific. And they haven't yet, and they're not required to, because they have other issues that they're dealing with.
You know, they always say they have so many people that have signed on, and I think that they use that as their selling tool by telling neighbor A that neighbor B that neighbor A has signed on, and everybody must be a good neighbor when really A hasn't signed, and so then B signs, and then they can use that back, you know. Do we have any idea truly where they're at with signing interested, happy landowners?
No, we don't, and that's something that the list of landowners, that's something that Summit Carbon, through the Iowa Utilities Board, is trying very hard to protect that list. Because they know once that list is out, those people on the list will not only be contacted by interested parties, but they're also going to be contacted by people who don't live in the area, but who have very strong feelings about pipelines. And it's similar to the wind farms. You've got these neighbors signed up for the wind farm, why won't you sign up for that?
Well, I've heard recently that an elderly landowner has been on the verge of harassed by the company, tracked him down to where he was having coffee at one point in time. And the family that had like a order that they couldn't contact him anymore because he's in his 90s and he's getting scared about it all. Have you heard anything about how that's all going in Crawford County?
If someone is feeling that they're harassed, if they live in the county, they will contact the sheriff's office. If they live in the city, they will contact the police department. But as far as, some sort of like a cease and desist or hey, you have to contact this member of the family rather than the landowner, that's something they can do privately without going through law enforcement.
Actually live in Schleswig, but their property's in Idaho.
Certainly, some of these companies have very strong sales tactics.
Oh, very strong. This guy, yeah. All they practically hold his hand and hold a pen for him. That's so just some things like that we're hearing in our county. So just kind of really trying to stay ahead of it all.
I guess the question is, do we want to proceed with the ordinance or take it through zoning?
Correct.
And I mean, we're going down the avenue of through zoning on wind turbine.
Yes, we're looking at amending the construction component certificate.
I'd say zoning's a good place to start because if it doesn't go through zoning, then we're still going to get it back on our.
My question is, what would be the fastest way to have something to be proactive versus reactive? Because I mean, with the last wind turbine project, we were behind the 8 ball and
we were reacting. And
we were
couldn't-
trying to react
And
to,
the grandfather and me.
yeah, we didn't really had no dog in the fight after that.
So once the decision is made of a standalone ordinance or putting it through zoning, then it's just a matter of, does the board want to appoint a committee or just dump the whole lot over on zoning?
Oh, boy. So by adopting a committee,
Couple of us.
just a couple of us,
Right, so for the wind towers, Ty and Colin and I sat down with Dwayne and we talked about setbacks and what it looked like and things involved and, other concerns like that. And I would anticipate something similar if standalone ordinance isn't done for solar energy.
Mhm.
it's a little bit of a different animal, this one is.
Yeah, this is different than them, but it's,
Yeah,
it
same.
can affect the legal standing or, what they can legally do in the county.
All three of the issues go back to property rights. And it's again, how much is the board wanting to insert itself in a contractual relationship between a private property owner and a for-profit business?
That laid it right out there for us. Thank you.
Well, you guys get to make the call. We just get to talk in the background.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I asked a question.
I think so.
If the Iowa Utilities Board gives them eminent domain authority, will that supersede anything that this would do, or could it supersede that?
So it would depend upon what the Iowa Utility Board would specifically grant, because eminent domain, ultimately those lawsuits go through your local district court. So it'd be one of whoever is the sitting judge ultimately making that decision. But yes, the Iowa Utilities Board is they're very key in the process.
It wouldn't stop litigation. I mean, even if it's granted, the property should still file for injunction.
But isn't that the sticky wicket as far as the choice or decision of whoever's going to make that final decision, the for-profit company, are they going to be granted eminent domain? Utilities, I have no problem with. But when it's a private company and they're going to come in on their shirt tails of eminent domain because they have to go through IUP because this is a hazardous substance. And there's already, as I understand it, there's also already a law that says it does not apply, it does not apply to a private company. But yet, if you talk with anyone from Summit, they say, well, if IUB grants, us, we got it.
Well, they'll certainly take that and run with it, yeah.
So if the utilities board grants it, then it falls on the landowners to then come up with their own funds to hire an attorney to pursue litigation. So a lot of times the cost of litigation is a deterrent to landowners to fight whatever the company is trying to do. It's usually the company has more money. Deep pockets.
Deep, very deep pockets.
Especially when they're starting to double.
Triple.
Oh.
Sorry, some counties are tripling what their original easement price was.
I guess as a board, I have a question for you. Is this more complex as far as the scope and I feel your guys' plight. I don't want to feel like my thought as a board, we need to kind of let you guys have your fight and do what we can help with that, but we also need to be here to fight for those that want it. So it's really maybe not a fight, but protection in regards to both. Is this more complex that it needs to be an ordinance than just something on the zoning board? I mean, restoration of land and water and depth of going under tile lines.
I
Is
think
that-
we
is
gotta
that
be
maybe-
prepared in the event it has to go.
Well, I think it's a preference of the board. The complexity is there, you're right, because it's dealing with private parties, private industry, and state IUP. So there's a lot of different interests that are brought to bear. It's just a preference of the board, whether you want, what house do you want? How much of a hand do you want in this? Like Ty said earlier, if you guys bring it in-house with an ordinance, well, then the board has kind of put themselves, given themselves a seat at the table, as opposed to deferring to the zoning with a compliance certificate, where then it's just kind of part of the regular kind of business of that.
And as far as complication goes, zoning already deals with quite complicated issues such as these. So I wouldn't be concerned on the complicated side of it.
Preference.
I just want, my only thing is I like to make sure that it's a board that's gonna be looking at business, but also looking at the folks.
That's the sticky wicket
That's
word.
the
We're
sticky
at the business side of it versus the public. private
That's
side
just
of
it.
I have two thoughts. One, the zoning commission right now is to have 5 members. They only have 4 there, so apparently we're 1 short on the commission unless you're counting the administrator as 1 person. My second thought is I would probably lean more toward an ordinance just because when I'm thinking about zoning and we talk so much about what ifs with these towers or the wind turbines, what would happen? That was affecting one, maybe a family but if you're talking, just by reading through this and you're talking about these carbon pipelines, that could affect people for miles around.
Well, it's gonna affect everybody for,
The length of the pipe.
Right, exactly, but
even if you're for or against it. I mean, if you signed on or
right,
you-
exactly.
the land was acquired through other, you still want your land restored to,
And
what it
that's what
was
this is
before.
about.
and I think that's what we really need to,
That's what we have to.
that's what I'm trying to, is this more effective through zoning or an ordinance, and you guys is like, well, just what house do you want it in?
I mean, we've already put out that we're
Is it
against eminent
resolution?
domain.
Versus ordinance,
Since
some supervisors argue a resolution is, how do they say that? More effective, ordinance is more, that's a question too, is the resolution more in stone versus an ordinance, or is
Yeah.
one easily or amendable than the other one?
So a resolution you would pass, if you want to amend it, you just pass any resolution. An ordinance, we have a list of ordinances. Terry's office has put a number of those on the website. And that would be something that you can go to. And then if you wanted to amend it, you would amend the already existing.
So an ordinance is more chiseled in stone, where a resolution is just kind of some firm clay that's not been through the kiln yet?
They both carry the weight of law, and it's how the board can take action by motion, resolution, or ordinance. Ordinances are generally more available. I don't know that there are any resolutions that are publicly available. I would defer to Terry on that.
I think ordinance sounds like the way to go,
All right,
based on the availability.
For the-
to general public.
I was leaning towards ordinance myself, but how far along or late in the game we're kind of getting there to try to throw this into zoning, that it might, because then you got to bring their board into it to.
Well,
Well, this is
we
a
can-
discussion line only, so if
Yeah.
you want us to get an ordinance
I
tailored to
think
the
that's
county,
the kind of the way
we
we'll
will get it on a future agenda for discuss and take action, and if members of the public want to show up and for the county, or the board does anything.
I think that
I would lean towards getting a.
general
ordinance
consensus, maybe an ordinance,
to bring back as an item to take action on. And this is just kind of a template, is that what? or-
yeah, I think this is one that's been picked off other counties' websites, so.
Yep, it's called a model ordinance, so then each county can just sort of use it as a starting point
Okay,
and then red pen it from there.
So do we need a committee for that then?
Well, if you need to reach out for, let us know, okay?
We
Perfect.
need to help establish it like we do everything else. That's
I think this is your comments. Wait.
Any more comments on this?
Yes.
Like when you might have further discussion on this topic.
Seems like the board wants to move quickly, so probably in the next week or two, I would just check the agendas as they're posted.
So we know other counties have done the ordinances. Is that what you're referring to with the copies?
Right,
Okay, 'cause I think we can get those for you as well.
And then they had a Zoom meeting, that was a couple of months ago, where there were different counties on, kind of throwing together things that they had an attorney on, that had vetted a lot of it to see whether it would. you know, so-
That was a D, wasn't that a meeting down in Des Moines?
No, we had a Zoom meeting down
No,
here.
I had this one. but-
We had one in Des Moines too. We've had several in Des Moines. But the one that I'm referring to was the Zoom meeting down in our Zoom meeting room. I think kind of over there, or Jerry was on the Zoom at home. Didn't happen yesterday. I can't remember.
It's been a while.
Yeah. But they had a lot of good ideas. And it's in specific, I remember Shelby having some ideas, you know, as far as that road where we talked, which I thought that seemed interesting. Seemed like an easier way to not have to go through that domain. Was kind of yeah, so it looks like,
Okay, we'll get some to you guys.
All right,
Thank you.
okay,
thank you.
thank you. 10:10, discussion item. IT work order ticketing system.
You're
Tell
up.
us about it.
What do you got going?
So last year, I was looking at possibly doing some patch management for our endpoints, computers, things along those lines. And I saw an opportunity for, originally I was thinking of using one tool, and I got to looking at it. And after my ITAG conference, I found that there was a better tool that was better situated for what I'm looking for. But it offers additional features with it, actually for less than my original budget.
Wow.
Okay, so but the question that I've been kind of floating around to all the department heads and the IT committee, they were brought in on this, was a ticketing system for the county, so to speak. Basically, the tool I have in mind is just a small little icon that sits in the lower right-hand corner of your computer. You click on that, it pops up, you fill out said information, click send, you can put a screenshot with it if you so desire, and kicks it out and creates a ticket on their behalf. So
My ticket, what?
work order system, like,
Like-
let's say you have a problem.
Okay, I got one.
Yeah, let's say you got a problem, okay?
This one,
Down in the lower right-hand corner, probably near where you have a little grouping of icons,
Okay,
there's, one of them would be what we call an agent. And you click
Okay.
on said agent,
okay,
select, I'm thinking I'm gonna do a priority system with the little menu that pops up, and then it's like, critical or just a kind of,
I need.
Okay. all right.
yeah, kind of a routine, I guess, for lack of a better term. Fill it out, because it'll pop up a form. Fill it out. If you want to include a screenshot of the error or whatever you need to do, you click the little check mark that's in the
Okay.
lower right-hand corner, and you click send.
Wow.
Okay.
Can you fix it for me?
Well, then I get said ticket and triage it accordingly, look at it, see what's going on, and provide a fix or a resolution. But my main focus and the main purpose of this is just to see what are the thoughts of the board in regards to looking at a ticketing system. Okay. Less agent oriented, but more like, because my thought process is that we're gonna have elected officials come in and out and boards that come in and out, and there's gonna be a day, I know it, I can hear it already, where they're gonna ask, what does Jake do? Okay, and I don't, right now, I don't really,
If they ask, that means you're doing a good job.
well, I don't know,
We don't-
depends on how you wanna look at it.
We don't know where you are we know where you are when something's broke.
Right now, obviously, you guys can see the effects with machines that are brought in, equipment that's being brought in, things along those lines, but that doesn't really tell or give a story about what Jake does from a day-to-day basis, okay? And the intent would be able to generate reports from these said tickets and say, hey, this is what I've been doing.
So when you're getting a lot of tickets on these particular laptops, you'll know that was a piece of crap.
Yeah, there's that too. I mean, that gives me an idea on making them up.
So let's just, the other day I was in there and lo and behold, there you were under somebody's desk, it just kind of popped out.
Say it ain't so.
I was like, oh, that's what it is.
You
So
got
that when they're having that problem with in the treasurer's office,
Mhm.
they would just put in a ticket and then you would come right up, kind of a deal.
Well,
Instead of them calling you now and saying,
yeah.
hey, I'm frozen, I can't move any, or,
So there's advantages and disadvantages to this.
okay,
One,
just trying to figure that out.
obviously, I'm not going to be able to respond as quickly because I'm
Okay.
waiting for that ticket to come in.
Yeah, that's kind of
Okay.
why that was brought up.
Okay,
like that.
however, that being said, one, there's documentation behind, okay, that issue has popped up before, we have
Yeah.
we can know that's a problematic issue and we can come up
There's
with
a
better
problem.
fixes.
Yeah.
Or the other thing to keep in mind in that is, yeah, you lose that, but then I have something documented that says, hey, this
I
is
see
what's
that.
going on.
So what would you think the difference between respond time would be when somebody, well, I think the problem that day was her second screen wasn't working or something, I can't remember. But I don't know how fast you get up there. I'm just trying to make sure it's still
Well,
efficient.
right now, generally someone calls in and I go and respond immediately, okay?
But there's nothing that documents.
That's right.
Right. Furthermore, so let's say for instance, I am in knee deep in a problem, okay? And it's working, and somebody tells me they have a more critical issue. Let's say this is just a routine, like, hey, I'm swapping out a monitor,
Uh-huh.
okay? But someone has a more critical issue
Yep.
on the back end, like they have work stoppage,
Right.
okay?
That's what we got that day.
Yeah. Well, the work stoppage should take precedence,
Right.
but if I'm already dedicated to one issue and I'm already halfway through it, I might delay that work stoppage right now.
Right.
Whereas if a ticket is put in, I see, oh, that's a work stoppage. I need to respond more quickly to that issue versus a standard monitor swap out.
May I ask one more question?
Sure.
So let's just use the example of you're in the treasurer's office working
Mm-hmm.
on something. How would you be notified that you have the other problem? Either because before you wouldn't have it because they're calling you on your phone, you're not at your
Right.
phone.
Yep.
Would you have a way that would be, you'd be notified while you're working on the non-critical problem, when a work stoppage problem with?
Yeah, generally most tickets the way most ticketing systems work is they generate an email. You get an email that says, hey, ticket's been created for such and such an issue.
Let me ask you a question about the ticket then. Get a ticket saying, go fix the problem.
Mhm.
Do you close out the ticket with a solution
Mhm.
so that you know what you did?
And response, and usually it'll give me a time as far as how long it took for me to resolve that
I like
issue.
the idea. So how much is it?
So the ticket that the system that I have in mind was about $1,500 a year.
A year.
Originally, the solution I had in mind that did not have a ticket system associated with it was 3,000. So essentially half the cost with more features. So now my main, like I said, my main focus was is this something, I mean, I'm probably going to get that tool either way, okay, because it does patch management and a bunch of other features that that was my main focus, okay, and that's what I allocated the budget for, was patch management and being able to administer to all the endpoints. This is just something, do we necessarily want to start embrace a work order system, or is this, you know, oh, we're good with where we're at. Let's just stick with that for the time being. Okay.
Sure, you work in the courthouse. What are your thoughts?
Question.
Here comes the bus.
Are you ready, Jane?
Sure.
No, I think it could be beneficial. Like Jake said, it's one way to track his progression through the whole computer process that we all go through. It'd be a way of knowing that maybe a certain desktop is an issue and maybe needs early replacement, that kind of thing, as far as triaging computers for that. Yeah.
So if we were to try this,
Mhm.
is it a 1-year deal? I mean, we try it 1 year, we don't like it. and it's-
It can be
We don't
gone,
use it
Well,
enough to.
Well,
or you just won't use it for that purpose. You'll continue to use it for your patch management. and-
yeah, that's exactly what
kind of
Terry's
thing.
like. Okay. And there's nothing saying that, okay, say someone does call in, okay, instead of using the ticket, they don't like it, they don't want to deal with it, they're
Yeah,
whatever,
okay.
okay. There's nothing saying that I can't put that ticket in on their behalf. Granted, that's not what we really want to do, because obviously that takes time away from me.
And it's gonna take
but-
training.
It'll
Yeah.
take training.
Repetitive,
Well,
yeah.
And then if they realize, well, gosh, if I do this ticket, I'm gonna get helped faster because,
Right.
you know.
Mhm.
Especially if it's work stoppage,
Right,
especially if
right,
it's.
right.
Now, there's always going to be a case where I can't get into the computer. Okay, they're going to have to call. Okay, because there's no
Oh,
way to get.
Like they can't get in it to promote a ticket.
Do you get your emails
yeah,
on your
that's right.
telephone?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you had your phone with you, you'd know you're getting that.
I never
email.
leave my phone.
Okay,
anywhere.
that took care of that under the desk
Mhm.
problem.
Yep.
I
So
say let's try it. Let's try it.
I've
He
taken.
wasn't under there.
will
I
get them under the
get
desk.
calls everywhere I go.
Make the long short here, I think.
Yep.
We're going to get the system regardless.
Let's do it.
Why not try, why not do it?
Yeah,
I give it a
go.
and I've got
Give
the
it a
majority
go.
of the majority of the department heads have kind of bought into it. The only one I haven't talked to is Kim over at Public Health, but I did get a little pushback from Paul, because he knew that he would prefer just to call in versus having to fill out a ticket. And yeah, that takes a little bit of time, but Sherry loved it. She was like, yeah, do that. Let's do that right now.
Yeah.
So, and it also gives me an opportunity, just for your own, for this board's purpose, is that I could actually start, having agenda items where, like you guys have a call, where I can say, okay, here's the reports, here's what we've been doing, here's what's been presented, and see where our focus is and where we need to, we've got some metrics to work off
We'll
of.
give you 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Sounds like that's a go then.
Okay,
Yeah,
Thanks, Jake.
I
Yeah,
say do it.
appreciate it.
okay, yep, I
You have
just,
to
like,
show me where the icon is.
yep, it'd be pretty slick, so, but,
All right.
yeah.
Have you met my
Yours will
computer?
wear out that
10:20,
part
I
of the
think.
screen where you're touching it. Is that what you're telling me?
Colin, Martha, you had a chance to, the 2080 agreement?
Yeah, I talked to Don, talked to Gene. The Rolling Hills agreement, the verbiage that I was worried about, essentially, it was kind of like I suspected, it just wasn't able to be edited out in the limited time frame they were working with at the time. The way Don described it to me was just dinosaur language. They always envisioned going and amending later on. They just didn't have the time at the moment in the 0 hour. So with that assurance, then the rest of the 2080 is just fine.
Okay, well then with that, I would entertain a motion to approve
I
that
make a
2080
motion to
agreement.
get that 2080 agreement signed for Rolling Hills.
And moved and seconded to approve the 2080 agreement with Rolling Hills Community Service Region. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right. Outstanding. We're not running flying by the seat of our
Yeah.
pants.
I've been talking to the other
We're not
supervisors,
doing
just
too
kind
bad.
of on what
Okay.
this is gonna look
Good
like
job,
a little
Mr.
bit down the
Chair.
road, so.
Discuss take action tower RFP. There was a couple of questions, items you highlighted. Now that, is he still at the airport? Is he
I
still
can try
off?
to call Ray and get him in. You guys think we should get him in?
I think there's
some-
some things that we need to discuss. yeah.
Right.
Can I see that copy again? The printed out one? I know I can look
He's
it.
at the airport, so
I'll look at
we
it.
may or may not get it. They have to fly out where the towers.
If we can't get him today, it's probably not that bad. I'm not prepared to recommend an action today anyway, so we come up to reset that. But we'll get into all that. So,
Yeah, because on this, it doesn't have the high.
Ray, are you through security yet?
What?
Just
Should be highlighted on that.
Well, yeah, well, the board's, we're ready to take up the issue of the RFP. Are you able to, or do you need me to just continue on that? Okay, I'm gonna put you on speaker here. I was trying to find a parking spot at the airport. That might be a full-time job. All right.
Okay, so as the email went out, Ray highlighted certain points that you wanted the board's input on. He sent that out in highlights. Of course, starting from the front, there's just dates of proposal, site blocks, proposal dates done, just kind of what's our deadline and what's our timeline. And that's up for discussion. And just to cut to the meat of it, I mean, most of it looks just fine. To cut to the meat of it, there is the issue of insurance.
Yep.
And what is the expectation of the relationship between the county and whatever vendor construction outfit is going to eventually come on board to make the build. Under paragraph 219, it describes the county as a co-insured.
Plus payee or additional insured is what I think it probably should be.
The county would be most protected by both, by being both an additional insured and a loss paid. Co-insured, that language tells me that whatever insurance the contractor has, the county is co-insuring with them the project. And so it'd be the two of you in a partnership insuring the build. But that doesn't really protect the county. That puts the county's insurance directly on the table. And then there's this issue of go to chapter 5, I believe it is, about so there's a warranty on the build, on the equipment for 1 year after installation or system acceptance, and that's fine. If you move on to 514 and 515. Okay, so I believe these are supposed to be coupled, like it's supposed to be read in tandem together. I mean, they're right by each other. But if you read 515 first, there's a maintenance contract that whatever vendor is eventually brought on board is going to have to offer a maintenance contract to the county. Not that the county has to accept it, but they have to at least offer to maintain the project after that 1 year warranty period is over. And then what that contract will look like would have to be negotiated at that time. But in the meantime, we have a 1 year period of warranty coverage. What's the insurance relationship between the vendor or the contractor and the county during that period? And what would the insurance relationship be like after that 1 year period? Being a co-insured, I would not recommend board B.
So change that wording in here. Ray had brought up last night when I was talking to him that, if we want to this is something that's kind of what they've used in the past.
Right.
And if we want some revisions, Ray, correct me if I'm wrong here, I'm trying to remember how you said it, but if we need to do some revisions, I mean, just, you know, do them and we could.
So being an additional insured would allow whatever insurance the contractor had, they would extend coverage to the county. We would be an additional insured on their policy. So that's a kind of a policy protects the county
That'd be
from
like,
any of the bills.
like a liability. If something happened during construction and the tower fell on somebody's car, their insurance would cover the repair of that car or something.
And cover the county in case the county isn't named anything, they would
insure.
extend their coverage.
Yeah.
Now, being a lost payee would allow the county to get money from the insurance claim first.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. It's our tower. The contractor should have no business recouping insurance costs on our tower, or insurance payouts if there are any. But, you know, Martha and I went over these contracts to great length. And what we ultimately decided is, you know, we can make recommendations to the board, but at a certain point, much like that CCMH lawsuit, at a certain point, you know, our backgrounds don't cover contract agreements for building communications towers with contractors.
Yeah.
It's just somewhere that our knowledge doesn't, and eventually it peters out. And so the board might want to consider, at least to review really nitty-gritty nuts and bolts, to send this to a specialist that works in this world a bit more than our office does. It's not a total necessity, but if we're looking to protect the county the most, there comes a point where I just, you know.
Do we have somebody that local that does this?
Probably not. We know of a firm in Des Moines that does it. It's the Whitfield Eddy firm. And it wouldn't be like total representation. It would just be a contract review process. It'd be like a one and done job.
Yeah.
And as much as I want to come to the county and say, I got this covered, you know, there's a certain point where the county is best protected when a specialist is brought involved. So, you know, Martha and I can lead you pretty far, but at a certain point, you know.
At what point do we bring in at what point are we to notify our insurance holder? Handles our insurance.
Which is Terry Hoffman.
Hoffman, yeah, for liability.
Yeah,
So
I wanted to call him this morning, to be frank, but I ran out of time.
And they're aware that we are taking
Yeah, I just-
ownership and deed of these tower sites currently. I did notify them of that.
Good. I just want to make sure that has a coverage time when we do it.
Do we need to have it until they can throw us the keys? I mean, if it's in the RFP, that they've got the insurance on it until it's turned over. I mean, we don't need to notify our insurance unless we want to
Well,
have
the
some
land
sort of.
itself is a liability.
You have to have
right?
liability insurance.
Yeah.
As soon
I
as
mean,
we own
right.
it.
The
We have
insurance,
liability.
if you look at the
Well, I
language
know,
in
but they just need
515,
to know what we own and, yeah.
Right. As soon as we own it, it's our responsibility.
Right.
to provide liability.
right, so in the maintenance contract, which doesn't exist yet, but has to be offered to the county as part of this RFP, the proposal under 515, if chosen by the county, will provide maintenance services for the project equipment after the expiration of the 1-year period, if chosen. And then you read back to 514, and that maintenance contract, they will maintain satisfactory insurance during the life of the maintenance contract. But again, it doesn't exist yet, so we don't know what that language is, but eventually we'd have to tease that out. But for now, the language in 214 is the one that concerns me. And I don't think it doesn't offer any protection, or not quite. 219, being a co-insured essentially tosses the county's insurance on the table.
We want to make sure that if something goes wrong, our name is on the check with their name on that insurance check.
I think that's fair.
On the lost pay part.
Right, yeah, it has the standard indemnification clause in there. But
On the next
similar-
page in 219F.
Yeah, but similar to when the county got included in the lawsuit against the hospital, the county's gonna get included in any lawsuit. We just need to make sure it's got.
Yeah, I mean, we will.
protections Put in place.
But if the RFP protects us, if the contractor has to agree to cover us, then that's our way out.
Yeah.
Now, we did find, there was a just kind of as a model, there was a communication tower from Georgia that Martha hunted down. We kind of looked through that. And there's some language in that on page 20. I don't know if you guys have it. That I think is pretty good. I mean, it essentially names the county as an additional insured, and the coverage should be primary. It's just kind of the language that I think more in line with what we would want in our RFP.
Okay.
All right.
Find a place to park yet, Ray, or?
Yeah, I've been listening in here, and what I was going to say is I think you and I kind of touched on. I'm not an insurance expert, so what I would ask is, well, and for what it's worth, I don't think we've had any other county agencies make any significant changes to what's in there now. But having said that, we're fine with whatever you want to do. So I would suggest that you go ahead and, do your research and come back with any changes you want us to include, and we'll just do it.
We need to do it quick though, wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
Because we need to get this RFP out pretty quick.
Yep. Yeah, in fact, if you could have it to us, first thing next week is what we'd like to see.
Yeah. I mean, I think we probably should reach out to that specialist.
I do too. If you feel comfortable,
Yeah, let's do
I
that.
think that's the way to go. I think it'd be money well spent.
Because and another thing is, this contract, how long is the build time? I mean, what are we really envisioning for a build time? It's going to be, it's in there.
Oh, well,
January
there's
23rd project completion date is
other work that's underway, but hold on a second here. Kind of figure out where I'm at the airport here.
It says estimated completion date, January 2023. And there's a warranty period for a year after that. And then any maintenance contract that the county might pick up after that might last many, many years. And so my point to the board is, the RFP is important because it could come back to the county for years and years and years and years and years. And, the way that litigation works and lawsuits pop up is you can't account for everything. You try to, but you can't.
Yeah.
But you try to build in as much protection as you can at the time you make the contract, which is why I'm recommending perhaps a specialist in the field might, just because of the years that, all the building, all the people and all the subcontractors are going to be here, and then the maintenance on top of that, whatever. It could be a 10-year maintenance contract.
I agree. I think that's it.
I agree.
Okay, we'll reach out.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, thanks. That it?
Thanks, Ray.
Ray, thanks for being available.
You bet. We'll talk more soon. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ray.
Thank you.
Have a good trip.
Alrighty, bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Let us know. Last year and a half, we'll do better than our, year more than I've seen in the first 7 years. Okay, citizens input. Any citizens?
Sure. We're gonna check it on the towers pretty much, not quite daily, just make sure the air conditioning is working. I was gonna check on doing the leads on the Ridge Tower and see how that's gonna be, and then once all the towers are up, then he's gonna look at maybe doing that, what is it, neutral, what do you call it, sterilization of the ground,
Parametal.
whatever that stuff is, and then just do that like twice a year. That should take care of any lead issues. The generator out at the Ridge Road site has been maintenance, and that's good to go.
Excellent.
And that'll be something that, once we get these all done, we'll need to work with somebody on a maintenance contract, and then once everything's up, we can have our vendor do the babysitting of each individual tower, as well as the building, to see if the radios are working, to see if the air conditioning is working, to see if we have electricity, to see if the generator's running or not. And if there's any issues, they'll call their technician, and then that person could go out and check it. Otherwise, yeah, we'll check it at least twice a week, at least.
Okay.
Right now, I gotta check it more, because gotta worry about the air conditioning,
Yeah.
because it'll fry those receivables, transmitters, if those things quit, so. Keep an eye on them.
Okay,
Thanks for
thanks,
that
Ray.
report.
Thank you, Greg.
Great.
I have this one comment. I was wondering, there's a lot of people that I'm in contact with the pipeline going on that cannot make these meetings and cannot have access to the Zoom because they're working or.
Mhm.
Is there any way they can tape these meetings and have them
So
on?
this meeting is being recorded by the host or participant.
Right, and is it possible like to upload it into your website or something like that? And not just for a pipeline, but all meetings. And this has been very, very interesting. It's my first one that I've attended the whole time, and there's a lot of information given. And I think more people might get involved if they're able to hear what's going on, rather than, I mean, I know the agendas are out there, but I'll be honest, the agenda versus real, there's a big
They
difference.
can watch it when they get home from
We
work.
would
at
have
their-
to.
Exactly, so I wonder this day and age, you know.
I don't know, we can check on it.
We see it. I know a lot of counties do that. I know, back in the day, the city of Denison used to have it on, channel, what, 18 or whatever. So,
Well,
about
that's
half
true
an
too,
hour.
that way they can record it and watch that later.
No,
Just
so thought, yeah.
Just a thought, maybe something that's okay with it.
More people that know
Can
that,
we
the
pause?
better we are, because then they, hear it right from the horse's mouth.
Yeah.
No.
It's not impossible. We just need to figure out what we can do and what's feasible and, you know. We'll have to investigate what we.
Talk to Jay.
Right.
Yep.
Right, it's something just to think about, though, it would be really helpful for people who work and don't have the opportunity.
Okay,
We'll look into it.
Thank you.
Dan,
I mean,
not you? Martha, Colin, anything else? I do have one interesting, I will be gone next Tuesday,
Well, don't look at me.
Mr. Vice
It'll be a
Chairperson.
little practice for you.
Well, I might be around.
Okay.
Say, I wanted to bring up
I
one
was
thing.
right.
Gene and I were gonna trade our assistant roles in mental health and AME, EMA. I did that like I had dyslexia in the AME. Anyway, we were talking about that. So, I mean, do we have to do something official on that? Or can we just type that in on the responsibilities page or what?
I don't think there's.
You don't think
I don't think
I would
there's
just start
anything, as long as you guys have got it
with you.
taken
and-
care of.
I don't think you were, I don't think the board passed anything to give you those
Nope,
roles,
we just
right?
kind
Yeah.
of
You just appointed at the beginning.
First day at
By-
work, the
by-
newbies got.
Did we take
Who
what-
wants
action on
this?
that?
Yeah.
Raise your hand.
Yeah, if
Yeah,
it
and
wasn't
it's just-
granted by official action. then-
I've been doing more that helps along that line and she's been doing more that helps along that line. So we just thought, you know, gosh,
I would
with
go
both
to
of them
public
being
health
gone, we
meetings
might
and
be
you
able to
would go
slide
to
into
EMA.
jobs.
We have to.
Well, we do take official action on that
That's
first
right.
meeting of the year, so
Yeah,
we'll
we
have
voted.
to
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
we'll
You
just
just
have
put
to
on
have
the
an agenda
agenda.
item. 'Cause
Okay.
That was my question. I meant to bring that up
I
in the
just put that on the
supervisor.
agenda next week before it's all done.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can
We
take
have enough
action.
votes next week, if I'm gone.
I think we should.
I'll be here.
All
We
right.
should have a quorum. Eric, you plan on being here? huh?
I will say we're leaving as soon as the meeting's over again.
Okay, any other business needs to come before the board?
Did I get it on the-
If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. It sounds like Eric's making that motion.
I
Second.
made it, yeah.
Second.
Okay, move and second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? See you all tomorrow.
Appreciate your help.
Do you want to put this Iowa business?
Thanks,
track
Martha.
thing on the agenda
Have a
for
good
next
day.
week to talk
Yeah.
about?
You guys go ahead.
See you, Dan.